And where news is done right. And today we have more big breaking news on the continued legal witch hunt and nonstop persecution of Donald Trump. And we have an all-star panel, I kid you not, of guests to break it all down. Former Defense Department Chief of Staff and MAGA rock star Kash Patel is here, along with Article 3 project founder, the brilliant, the one and only Mike Davis. And that is just in moments, so stay tuned. And later, America First Patriot Congressman Cory will expose all of Biden's disasters and why the 2024 race is now as crucial as ever for the future of the nation. But first, the efforts by rabid left-wing prosecutors to interfere in the 2024 election is now as undeniable as ever, as prosecutors working under special counsel Jack Smith have reportedly notified Donald Trump that he is a criminal target and likely to be indicted in a probe into alleged mishandling of classified documents. Now, of course, this is yet another special counsel fishing expedition. It's got nothing to do with facts or upholding the rule of law, but it's just another attempt to interfere in the 2024 election, to try and intimidate Donald Trump and his supporters and allies, and quite frankly, his tens of millions of voters. And as this sham probe drags on, we are starting to hear more and more about possible prosecutorial misconduct in this baseless investigation. For example, there's now allegations that a senior prosecutor working on the case tried to influence a key witness by discussing a federal judgeship with the witness's lawyer. And that's not all. Former Trump attorney Tim Parlatore met before the grand jury, and here's what he said happened. You're not going to believe it. Take a look.
I was really stunned by what I saw in the grand jury room by the conduct of the prosecutors. They made many attempts to try to get at privileged communications. They would ask me about conversations with my client. They would make improper references to the jury, trying to mislead them about that. At one point, it got to the level where, they're asking me this again, and then they'll turn to the grand jury and they say, so you're refusing to provide this information. Like, no, I'm not refusing to provide. The ethical rules prohibit me. Even if the answer to this question is helpful, I'm not allowed to give it. And I turned to the jury and I said, and she knows it.
Of course, this all comes as Attorney General Merrick Garland sits on a mountain of evidence of Biden's alleged bribery and foreign corruption, along with evidence of Biden's own mishandling of classified documents. Remember that? Corvette Summer? Yeah. There is an intentional two-tiered system of justice designed to punish anyone who challenges the status quo or the entrenched political class. It's why now, more than ever, we must stand strong and get behind the America First movement and restore order to a system that is being weaponized to destroy the fabric of our nation. Joining me now, we're going to hash through all of this. We could not have two better guests to break it all down. We've got author of Government Gangsters, I love that title, former Defense Department Chief of Staff, former prosecutor, MAGA warrior, and the legendary Kash Patel. Do you like that, Kash? I'm making you sound like Muhammad Ali. I just love it. All right. Along with former Chief Counsel for nominations on the Senate Judiciary Committee, former Supreme Court clerk, Article 3 project founder, the brilliant Mike Davis. He's a legal eagle, folks. All right, so let's get right down to this because so much is going on. We've been hearing all these reports that, an indictment, another one, right? It's like Groundhog Day, is imminent with this whole Jack Smith situation. There's a lot to get to. Kash, I'm going to go to you first. You have a column out, which I found to be quite interesting, on Real Clear Politics called The Two Tiers of Justice. So lay out for the viewers, just so we can get this started, just what is happening here and how sick and twisted this whole thing is, this persecution.
Well, KG, as always, great to be with you. And Mike, great to be with you as well. Look, I've spent a career in government, 16 years, Democrats and Republicans, and I've never seen the weaponization like I have when Donald Trump and his allies are the target. What do you mean by that? 6 years ago, it was a right-wing conspiracy when I dared to investigate Russiagate. But all roads lead back to Russiagate because the same co-conspirators at the FBI and DOJ And the folks in the media are the same ones running the same operation over and over. How does that happen? The only way it can happen is if you create a two-tier system of justice where certain Americans are treated one way and others are treated based on the law and the fact. It should only be a singular system. And let me highlight for you the example that I think is coming. Rewind the tape when the Justice Department and James Comey said Hillary Clinton would not be charged with disclosing national defense information, whether it was classified or not is irrelevant, because they gave her literally a pass because she was running for presidency of the United States and they wanted her to win. I suspect because Donald Trump and his team, and I was in the grand jury, went out there and told the truth. The president has uniform declassification authority, sole authority, period. So I think they're going to levy a national defense information charge against him. But isn't it ironic that they're going to a grand jury to indict Donald Trump on the very act that Hillary Clinton was actually guilty for, when President Trump has the Presidential Records Act and the Declassification Authority, unlike Hillary Clinton? That is a two-tier system of justice at play. We've seen it with the 51 Intel letter. We've seen it with Russiagate. We've seen it with the sham Jan 6 committee, and it never ends. It's just going to keep being repeated over and over again for one purpose: to rig an election. And that's why we must destroy it and send Donald Trump back to the White House.
It's really true, because that's what they did last time, right? They did this and sold the election as well by, in fact, ignoring the Hunter Biden laptop, doing the whole Russiagate investigate. It's one thing after the next. They're doing it again. It's the same playbook, but quite frankly, because they think it worked, well the last time. So, Mike, I want to get to into the legal weeds of all of this. What statutes do you think we're looking at, and what do you think of this case? How strong do you think it is? How weak? Lay it out.
Well, here's the deal. I think Kash is right. They're going to try to charge President Trump under a version of the Espionage Act that does not apply to a president or former president's handling of his presidential records. They're going to ignore the Presidential Records Act. And the Presidential Records Act is very clear that any documents created or received by the president or his White House staff is a presidential record. He's allowed to take those presidential records when he leaves office, and it does not matter whether they're classified or not. That's why Congress gives former presidents the office of the former president with secure office space, with staff with security clearances and Secret Service protection. These documents never leaked for 18 months until Biden sent the FBI to do this illegal, unconstitutional, unprecedented home raid from a biased magistrate judge who had just recused 6 weeks prior to get back these documents. And we all know what this is all about. This is to get Trump's declassified via presidential memo crossfire hurricane records that are so damning. We saw the Durham report with the unclassified records. Just imagine what's in the classified records.
It's unbelievable. But, they've obviously been working at this for quite some time. It's, several different entities and individuals acting in concert, all for the specific purpose of taking down Donald Trump. They will do anything to make sure that he does not get in office again in 2024. I think everyone's seeing this now because it's insane and it's relentless and it's all, amounts to no facts or evidence, but just weaponizing things. So, Kash, we're crossing kind of a Rubicon here, right? So Garland is protecting Biden. We can all agree on that. They're using lawfare, right, to try and destroy Trump. Congressional oversight authority is sort of, quite frankly, our only and last and best option against a total destruction of justice here. What would your strategy be for the oversight committee, going forward to try to do something to combat this?
Yeah, look what we did at Russiagate. And look, let me just set this in motion for you. The FBI's director, the top cop at the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Chris Wray, lied to a United States Senator, Chuck Grassley, and said this document does not exist. He flat out lied about it. Then when a brave whistleblower came forward and said, not only does this document exist, but multiple do, Chris Wray backtracked his lie and then refused to produce it. And then Chairman Comer, rightly so, issued a subpoena and threatened contempt. But here's the thing. It's not about wins and losses in Congress. People are parading around how we successfully won to get 3 documents out. It's a loss. What about all the other documents they're hiding related to this? We're now finding out, thanks to John Solomon and company, that this source reporting about Biden's pay-for-play corruption bribery goes back to 2017. And guess what? The FBI never leaked that because of a presidential election. And now Chris Wray did another crime. He actually went out to the media, like they always do, and they told the world another lie, that Chairman Comer and Grassley were lying to you about this source and its existence, and the documentation and the evidence doesn't exist. And so Chairman Comer doubled down, thankfully, issued the subpoena and stood his ground. Now they got to get that document out to the whole world, and not just that one, every single one. And one last thing on sources, the FBI Confidential Human Source Corruption Cover-Up Network, that's what I call it. When we subpoena Chris Steele, Devin and I, and his cohorts at the FBI, what did they tell us? The world was going to end. Steele was going to die. Britain and America's relationship was going to be ruined because of you, Kash and Devin. You know what happened? We exposed the biggest crime syndicate the FBI's ever had. And I think Comer's sitting over the target on the same thing. That's why they don't want you to hear from this target. Don't believe for a second they can't protect this source. It's the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Of course they can.
You're absolutely right. And good on you for calling him out on it, because it's absolutely ridiculous. It is an insulting excuse and fabrication, quite frankly. Mike, you also tweeted, little confidence Trump will get a fair trial, especially not in D.C. The Supreme Court will have to fix this. Call the fixer. Can you explain more about that scintillating tweet, and what specific issue could be litigated at the Supreme Court? Because I think everybody, literally I get calls from friends and they're like, oh, it's going to have to be the higher courts. The higher courts are going to have to fix this. And from, big donors, supporters of the president. Tell us how you think it could play out.
Well, I worry that Trump will not get a fair hearing in D.C. or Miami. He'll get a more fair hearing in Miami if they bring the charges in the Southern District of Florida instead of D.C. D.C. is 95% Democrat and 99.9% Trump deranged. I might be the only Trump supporter in Washington, D.C., and I spend 90% of my time in Denver. So yeah. I can assure you Trump will not get
You're lone survivor over there, let me tell you. I don't even know. Right. Good luck.
That's right. He's not going to get a fair hearing in D.C. He's not going to get a fair judge. He's not going to get a fair jury, and he's not going to get a fair appeal at the D.C. Circuit, which is controlled by Obama judges and weaklings on the Republican side. So this will have to get resolved by the Supreme Court eventually. I hope it's resolved before it goes to a trial. Maybe a motion to dismiss the indictments, but I fear that it's going to go on appeal to the Supreme Court down the road, where you could have a convicted Donald Trump who wins back the White House, which maybe he can go in and appeal to the Supreme Court or just pardon himself. Here's the problem. The courts, the National Security Division, the Biden Justice Department, Jack Smith, they are misrepresenting the law to the courts. The Presidential Records Act controls a president and former president's handling of his presidential records, not the Espionage Act. They know it, but they are continuing to make those misrepresentations.
Well, I mean, that's a malicious prosecution right there. I mean, to me, it just flies in the face. Like a first-year law student could figure that out and say, yeah, this doesn't, fit. Like, I don't understand. I mean, it's so obvious and so egregious that this can even be happening. And they know that he didn't do anything wrong, but they're nevertheless insisting and force-feeding and shape-shifting something that doesn't apply to him, and instead of looking at the law that's clear and solid on the books, because that should totally exonerate him right there. And by the way, how do you justify the difference between what they're doing to President Trump and not even pursuing this whatsoever against President Biden? How?
That's the issue. The whole reason we're hearing about Jack Smith right now is because Biden got caught with a $5 million bribe from Burisma when he was the vice president of the United States, where he threatened to cut off $1 billion in funding to Ukraine if the Ukrainian president didn't fire this prosecutor investigating Burisma and his own family. That's what Joe Biden should be impeached for this. That's why
literally it's like time for impeachment. I'm like waiting for the countdown. I'm like, what's happening? Someone tell me their Apple Watch is notifying that he's getting impeached, because this makes no sense to me.
Yeah, and it also makes no sense that Joe Biden had 5 stashes of stolen classified records from President Obama and even the Senate, unguarded for years, moved several times, and there's evidence he used these records to get Ukrainian funding in a 22-point memo that Hunter Hunter put away the crack pipe and decided that he was a Ukraine geopolitical expert. There is no chance that they didn't use these stolen classified records in Ukraine. And remember this sweetheart deal that Garland had with Biden. When they're going after Trump with the FBI raid, they let Biden secretly gather records. His own attorneys gather records. 4 different sets they turned in. The attorneys had to have represented. They turned over everything. Garland gets caught, appoints special counsel Rob Hur. FBI goes in and finds the fifth set of stolen classified documents. How is that not obstruction of justice, right?
No,
How did his not misrepresent that to the Biden Justice Department?
It's outrageous. Kash, I'll give you a comment on that, and I have another question for you.
Yeah, look, it's the full, complete 360-degree circle of the two-tier system of justice. It's not just in the court system. It's in the intel community. It's in the legislative branch. And as Mike highlighted, it's in the judiciary. Now you know you can't get a fair trial. But when you put all of this together, when you wind the tape back to 2015 and 16, and we said Russiagate was real and the FBI broke the law and unlawfully surveilled Trump, that's not a conspiracy anymore. And what Donald Trump says today is truer than ever. They're after us. I'm just in the way. And now people are stitching together the fact that you have been credibly reporting over a time of 6 years that no more conspiracies. The FBI has lied over and over again. And every time they tell you it's a source issue, it's a corruption cover-up. And every time the DOJ says we're going to prosecute you based on the facts and the law, you know that's a complete ruse, as Mike just laid out. So the only way to destroy this is to actually, unfortunately, take it to the max. And that might require President Trump being charged with this federal offense, because otherwise people aren't going to pay attention. Remember, the Durham report even had CNN saying the FBI is now devastated. So that was a monster win for President Trump. He was completely exonerated. It only took 6 years. And I hope, like Mike said, they move faster with interlocutory appeals and get this thing done soon.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the problem with all of this. But I mean, they don't want to. They want to drag it out. You know, they want to age the case, drag it out, past 2024, so that it hurts the president, or they try to hurt him with this, and that people will say, whoa, we're worried about the general election. This is a lot of baggage. This is a lot of craziness going on. We're worried about this. Can we win again? Everyone knows Trump's going to be the nominee. Okay, let's just fast forward to that. All right. I called the Psychic Friends Network. I got it on a good tip. That's happening. Okay. So in the meantime, everyone else is just going to waste our time and money and resources that we need to be focused on the general election, because they've already got their playbook of what they're going to do. They'll be let them all kill each other, spend all their money, lack focus on the general election so that they can, retain the White House. So, all right, Kash, talk about this, in fact, the political implications. How does this affect, in your opinion, the primary and ultimately Trump in 2024?
Well, look, I'll get to Trump in a second. I still think Hillary Clinton's going to jump in the race. They don't want Biden. You keep scaring me
with this. I don't know. I'm going to sleep with the lights on, or my head under the covers.
They don't want him to run, and they'll eventually charge Hunter with some Mickey Mouse plea deal to say the system of justice is universal and all this. But that's the political cover-up that you're talking about. And you're right. I completely agree, as Trump's senior advisor, that he's going to be the nominee. But what they're trying to do
Well, you agree whether you're a senior advisor or not,
yeah.
Right? I mean, because that's the common sense about who's going to be the nominee. When you look at the polls, you look at the facts, you look at the experience, you look at the base.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm not even the political guy. I'm the national security defense intel guy. And I'm telling you, it's going to be him, because he literally kicked ass for America on all those fronts. The border, China, drugs, trafficking, Iran, Russia, getting us out of forever wars, taking on the international stage to make sure that the U.S. put America first. What is wrong with that? And people are now seeing that Joe Biden's agenda is very simple. What did Donald Trump do? I'm going to do the opposite. People thought I was kidding when I said that 2 years ago, and that's literally what he continues to do. So when you extend that out politically, I think everyday Americans are starting to see, well, it doesn't matter whether I like or dislike someone. It matters whether or not my kids can eat and go down to the streets of the schoolhouse and not be shot or take a gummy that's full of Chinese fentanyl. Poison. Those things are resonating across the country because Joe Biden is allowing them to happen. So he's a clear front runner by a country mile on the Republican side. I just don't think Joe Biden is going to end up being the nominee on the Democratic side.
But you still really seriously think it's going to be Hillary Clinton? Do you know something we don't know? Is Hillary going to off Biden or trip him going up the stairs. Not going to be that hard.
You never know the power of the Clinton crime syndicate. You never know.
Oh my God, it's so true. I mean, it's like kind of funny, but it's funny because it's so accurate. All right, Mike, we've got one for you here. So shed a little bit more light, because everyone's like hearing this name, Jack Smith, the special counsel. Tell us about the devil's advocate. Who is this guy and what are his ties to Democrats?
So he is Garland's handpicked special counsel, and people need to understand that if there is an indictment against Trump and a no indictment against Biden, that is a decision that is made by Merrick Garland. He can try to hide behind a special counsel all he wants, but this is a decision that's made by Merrick Garland. But let's look at Jack Smith, this special counsel who was hired to go after Trump. In 2010, Eric Holder appointed Jack Smith ahead of the public integrity section at the Justice Department. Mm-hmm. So it's essentially, it's a career job, but it's essentially a very political job. So he gets this job. He was implicated in the Lois Lerner scandal, of course. In 2014, Jack Smith indicted Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell. He got a conviction against this guy and took him out of the presidential contention, and the Supreme Court reversed him 8-0. And it would have been 9-0, but Justice Scalia passed away in the process. Jack Smith's wife is produced a documentary on the donors and donated $2,000 to Joe Biden in 2020. So there you go.
My gosh, wow. It's just so biased. It's so biased and outrageous, and as a former prosecutor, I hate this because, I took an oath of office. I took it very seriously. I wish they would do the same because this is a total miscarriage of justice. All right, Kash, so this all ties back to, the Russiagate playbook, right? Weaponize, justice to cover up their own wrongdoing. What role do you think the Crossfire Hurricane documents are playing in this particular case? And is this why the government has been literally trying to stop the release of your book, Government Gangsters? I'm not even kidding you. I think this is all tied in.
Well, look, I've always said all roads lead back to Russiagate, and people thought I was looking for a catchy kick line. And I'm like, no, that's not it. It's the same people at the FBI. Comey might not be there, but his minions are still there, and Wray has just replaced them. It's the same people at DOJ. The lead person at DOJ running this, Lisa Monaco, was the lead oversighter at DOJ with John Carlin when Russiagate was launched. They're the number 2 and 3 there. They are in charge. And so when I say all roads lead back to Russiagate, this might floor you, KG. I don't think I've told you this. Devin and I got out 60% of the documents from Russiagate. 60%. Wow. Then Congress flipped and Adam Schiff buried them in a wormhole, and Donald Trump bravely decided to declassify them. And what do you see this week? A letter signed by President Trump saying, I'm declassifying everything. That letter nukes the entire special counsel's case on President Trump. They could have produced it when I was in the grand jury. Right. That would have been nice. And without getting into details about what I did in the grand jury other than tell the truth, but this is the scam they're running. These same operators at the FBI are playing this book because, and Mike's right. I know what's in those documents. Devin knows what's in those documents. That's about it. And there's a reason they don't want the world to see the extent of the corruption. It doesn't just go to the FBI. It goes to the IC. It goes to classified leaks to the media. It goes to taxpayer-funded sources to the tune of millions of dollars and programs at the DOD involved in Russiagate. And all of that is in those documents, and they don't want it out. And there's a reason for that. And my book, actually, there's an announcement. I won. I sued the government after 8 months. My manuscript was finally released yesterday by the DOJ. And get this, 8 redactions, less than 12 words. That's what they spent 8 months redacting. We're going to go to print and hopefully get it out this summer, but pre-order at governmentgangsters.com. These people will do anything to bootstrap Donald Trump, his supporters, and American citizens. And this is how I make my livelihood, but they don't give a damn. And that's what's wrong with these people. These Russiagate documents have to get out.
I love this. Kash fought the law and Kash won. I love it. All right, well, good. We cannot wait. That is so exciting. That's a big victory. So fantastic. Good one for the good guys and for truth and for transparency. And you see that it was all just artifice because they were just trying to prevent your book from coming out. Like you said, 8 redactions, ridiculous. All right, so Mike, we know that Joe Biden has multiple sets of stolen classified records, okay, in a variety of different locations and that were moved multiple times, all the time, unsecured, and, unguarded, quite frankly. But yet, no FBI raid for Joe Biden.
Yeah, I mean, remember, Kash was talking about the FBI and how Chris Wray is the new sheriff at the FBI. Chris Wray was James Comey's protege and deputy for 5 years during the George W. Bush administration. Oh, yeah. So he's a deep state snake, just like the rest of them. And look what they've done in 3 presidential elections. 2016, Hillary Clinton gets caught with her illegal home server hacked by our enemies. And so they rake up, showing probably the Clinton Foundation's illegal pay-for-play schemes. She destroys the server, obstruction of justice. I'd like to know, did Russia have a hacked copy of that server before she destroyed the evidence? Because then they came up with the Russian collusion hoax to try to say Trump is colluding with the Russians when clearly he wasn't. Were they trying to brace for Russia maybe releasing these emails, just like they did in 2020 when they got caught with Hunter Biden's laptop with the Biden's foreign corruption scheme? And so what did they do? They said that this was Russian disinformation. They had the CIA collude with 51 former intel goons saying this was Russian disinformation. 2020, they're doing the same thing. Trump declassified the Crossfire hurricane records. These are very damning, as Kash knows. Trump could release them. And so what did they do? Biden had Garland send the FBI to go get back these documents. That's where we are. This is a bogus hit on President Trump because they fear these Crossfire hurricane records. And what about Biden's records that you brought up? Okay, if they actually cared about classified records, they don't. President Trump had the absolute right under the Presidential Records Act to have his presidential records classified or not in the heavily guarded office of the former president. Then Vice President Joe Biden and then Senator Joe Biden absolutely did not. And like you said, he had 5 stashes of stolen classified records, moved several times. There's evidence it was used. What have they done? What did the FBI do? What did the Biden Justice Department do? They quietly worked with Biden's personal attorneys and covered this up for 2 months, right? This is a total scam, and people need to understand this is about Crossfire hurricane documents.
100%.
And KG, one more thing on Chris Wray, real quick. When I was the lead investigator for Chairman Nunes in 2017, do you know what we just found out a few months ago? Chris Wray authorized unlawful surveillance of me, a senior congressional investigator, and subpoenaed my documents, my financial records, my emails. So stay tuned. We have asked Congress to act, and in about 2 weeks, we're going to have some breaking news. But that's how bad of a government gangster Chris Wray is. He authorized the surveillance of a senior staffer in Congress because Devin Nunes was uncovering his corruption, and they wanted to get dirt on the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. Stay tuned. We got more coming.
I cannot wait. That was a good tease. I like that. You're so hired. We're going to give you another 17th job. You're like, you don't have enough already. All right, Mike, I'll give you the last word before we have to part. Parting is such sweet sorrow.
You hear this and you say to the House of Representatives, House Republicans, where the hell is the impeachment inquiry for Chris Wray? Where the hell is the impeachment inquiry for Joe Biden? What are they waiting for? Let's get moving.
Couldn't agree more. Let's see what happens. But congrats again, Kash, on the book getting approved. We can't wait to read it. We'll have you come on when it comes out again, and probably 20 more times before that. Kash Patel and the great Mike Davis, thank you both so much for being here on the program. We'll have you back on real soon.
Thanks so much.
And make sure you like and subscribe. I mean, did you like that? I loved it, okay? So hit the little like button, subscribe, download Rumble, and never miss an episode so you don't miss any of the big breaking news that we have on this show. And it is all of you, quite frankly, who make this show possible, along with our wonderful and brave sponsors like Goldco. Gold and silver can protect your retirement savings from inflation and dollar devaluation. And look, we see all of the warning signs. We see banks collapsing. We see reckless spending. And I want you to be ready because I'm ready. So add the stability of gold and silver to your portfolio and protect yourself from what's next. From precious metals, IRAs, to direct purchases of gold and silver, Goldco has received and helped thousands of Americans diversify and protect their retirement savings. So go to kimsmetals.com to learn more. That's kimsmetals.com. They got all kinds of great offers on there for you as well. And I also want to bring you a brand new message from Patriot Lifestyle where you can save more and spend less on a whole host of different benefits, from non-insurance healthcare benefits to savings on travel, identity theft, legal services, and even pet care. Take a look. And you can go to patriotbenefits.net to learn more. These programs all come in extraordinary value and will improve your life. Now, as Joe Biden and his corrupt allies attack the integrity of our justice system, trust in the FBI is plummeting amid evidence that political bias is infecting the credibility of law enforcement. According to a new Rasmussen poll, 60% of likely U.S. voters believe that the FBI was involved in covering up the Biden family's alleged crimes. And under Biden, faith and confidence in many of our institutions is cratering. After Biden's disastrous withdrawal in Afghanistan, Americans are questioning military readiness. At the border, the Biden agenda is unleashing chaos day after day. And while they use legal witch hunts against Donald Trump to try and distract from all of these self-inflicted crises. Joining me now for reaction to all of this, Republican superstar, Congressman from Florida's 7th District, my great friend and Army combat veteran, America First Patriot, Cory Mills. Congressman, thank you so much for being on the program.
Nah, thank you so much for having me. I love being on this show.
Fantastic. You just put me in a good mood. Just even seeing you, and every time I see your tweets and everything, I love it. I'm always retweeting them. You're fantastic. So talk about like having an amazing first year as a congressman. You're off to like a rocket ship start. So congratulations to that, and you're serving your constituents and the country very well. So, and I want to get.
Thank you so much. I couldn't do without you guys.
Oh,
trust me.
God bless. Well, we love it. You're doing hard work there. So I want to get your reaction to what you're seeing inside the Biden DOJ and how Republicans need essentially, to respond to these attacks on the justice system.
Well, the first things first, if we're going to continue to try and say that we're the majority, we need to start acting like it. We need to step up exactly what we're doing, stop playing with the baby gloves and go on the offense. We need to start thinking about what would the Democrats do, because they don't even need facts in order to try and impeach presidents. They don't even need facts to open up investigations that waste tens of millions of dollars. We have, under the Oversight Committee, Federal Document 1023, which very clearly lays out, which was brought to us by a whistleblower who is a 10-plus year FBI trusted informant, that has actually shown where the Biden family is so corrupt and so criminal that they have put together a spider web of LLCs and banking systems to try and route money in an effort to try and go ahead and utilize money that has come in, whether it be for Hunter, whether it be for James, or whether it be 10% for the big guy. The bottom line is that the FBI, under Director Wray, the same as under Secretary Blinken in the State Department, has tried to deny Congress our rights to try and get accountability through our congressional inquiries. We have had to actually go forward to the floor, threaten to hold them in contempt. We have subpoenaed them, and at which point now they're starting to comply when they don't have any further reasoning. The question now is, are these documents being modified by the time and they're just buying time? Do we know for a fact that they're providing us all the necessary information? The American people deserve accountability, and that's why they elected a Republican majority to govern, to get accountability, transparency, and start holding people's feet to the fire.
No, I totally agree. And that's it. You're taking it seriously. I mean, you just came in, you took your oath on, and now you're actually doing the job that the taxpayers want you to do, to come in there with all your life experience, your combat experience, your business experience, and do what's best for, for this country. And that's what we need. We need more people like Cory Mills that are willing to serve and get in office, not these swampy politicians or rhinos or people that take a knee every time there's some kind of friction or controversy or some back and forth about doing the right thing on a bill or whatnot. I couldn't agree more. Now, and everything, Joe Biden is doing essentially is really, quite frankly, undermining our safety and security. And I know that this is something, very important to you and, one of your areas of expertise. But, it's very problematic for our country that we have, no faith essentially in our justice system right now. We've got growing aggression, Congressman, from foreign adversaries, chaos, total chaos at the border with drugs pouring in, sex trafficking, child trafficking. It's very disturbing. Gangs coming in. It just never ends. Is impeachment, and I've had some guests on to talk about that on previous shows, on the table. Tell us how you think that would work. Do you think that would be, worthwhile?
Well, to be honest with you, let's go through that series of talking points that we just went through. We know for a fact that one of his family members had received at least $3 million from the mayor of Moscow. We know that there was $80,000+ a month from Burisma that was going to Hunter Biden, where his father, who is then vice president, utilized an actual quid pro quo, which should be renamed Quid Pro Joe, that actually went after the attorney general and the prosecutor in Ukraine and said, if you don't fire this individual who's investigating Burisma, that we're actually going to stop any humanitarian aid funding. Now you look at the ideas of the $1 billion+ that's gone from China and the CCP to Hunter Biden, who had no actual, understanding of what was going on in construction or housing development or any type of real estate deal. But yeah, all of a sudden there's $1 billion+ that's coming to them. And what it is to buy access, it's to buy policy. And that's been proven. And that's exactly what the whistleblower was going through. Now let's look at what Joe has done as a whole, not just the corruption, not just the fact that he has sold out his country, but he's actually sold it out to one of the greatest existential threats, which is China. We know that China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea has a geopolitical alignment, and their goal is to undermine United States security cooperations abroad, to try and eliminate the U.S. dollar as the global currency. And they're utilizing Joe Biden's failed policies and his continued wokeness with trying to indoctrinate our children and utilize CRT, DEI, and ESG in our businesses and our military to try and weaken us enough for China and others to create their hegemony, utilizing other corrupt organizations like WHO and WEF. Now look at the border. The border is absolutely open. Our sovereignty is violated. We just passed D-Day, and I can tell you more people come across our border per day than what we had during the invasion and actual D-Day. Put that into perspective. You also have the drug cartels who in 2018, they were making about $500 million a year in revenue off of drugs and human and child trafficking. Fast forward to underneath Joe Biden, it's now a $13 billion a year industry, of which nearly 46% is human and child sex trafficking. So he is not only the MVP of the drug cartels, but he's also proven that we are the weakest on the world stage. And that's why we're not being respected by our adversaries and they're feeling more emboldened. But that actually originated in Afghanistan, to be honest, with his failed botched withdrawal. But again, everything that this man has ever touched, with the exception of ice cream, has completely failed. And we have to get back to Trump-era policies with Remain in Mexico, with Title 42, with holding up people with the China Phase 1 deal, keeping our adversaries accountable like we did with the counterterrorism strikes of Qasem Soleimani, Bakr al-Baghdadi, looking at holding Iran and our adversaries to note, making sure that GDP is paid on every single person who's a part of NATO, like Germany and France and Italy, making sure Russia backs out. And Trump is the only person who actually removed us from the INF treaty with Russia and held them accountable, who negotiated with Kim Jong-un to get him to actually get rid of his nuclear programs, who actually worked to put Israel in place to be strong with the Abrams Accord, as well as for trying to stop the centrifuge programs that was going on in Iran, the JCPOA, the trade deals. The actual ability for America to be respected on the world stage is gone under Joe Biden.
Mm-hmm. It's unbelievable. I mean, there really is such a lack of, faith and confidence in our military readiness, in our national security, position. And quite frankly, Congressman, we see it now. I mean, Putin's emboldened, Russia's on the march, North Korea and Kim Jong-un sleeping like a baby at night because he's not sweating the U.S. You see
Don't
China.
worry, man. We can out-pronoun every single one of our adversaries. That's what they're really scared of,
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Now we're scary. That's it. And quite frankly, what's going on with China and Taiwan?
I mean, that's right there in itself is, again, under President Trump, you would have never have seen the kind of aggression that you've seen with Russia and its invasion of Ukraine. Remember, Ukraine has only been invaded on 2 different occasions. Once in 2014 when they came into Donetsk and they annexed Crimea, which, by the way, who was in the office? Obama and Biden. And also again, when Biden came into office, that's when the full-fledged invasion, which he called a minor incursion, started to come forward. Now, we could have been utilizing the 94 Budapest Memorandum back then. That would have actually been an international treaty violation. We could have gotten international buy-in. We could have leveraged the international criminal court tribunals. There were so many things that we could have done, but instead, you got these neocons and neolibs who think that interventionism and warfare is good for America, which is contrary to our actual beliefs and our actual principles. And now China is advancing the Belt and Road Initiative. They have cut off Western Hemisphere supply chain by taking control of Africa, Oceania, expanding the Eurasian borders. They're actually on the move in our own hemisphere with their marriage of convenience of the Chavez of Venezuela and Pedro in Colombia. They're printing fentanyl in the Darien Gap and trying to utilize economic coercion on Honduras and Panama to take over the canal. They're killing 100,000 Americans a year with the fentanyl overdose that they're printing and distributing across our borders with help of the cartels. And now, as we just heard recently, you've got Cuba, who's going to actually allow China to build the largest spy base in Cuba to be utilized against the United States. None of this would have happened under President Trump. Everyone knows that his foreign policy was the best that they've seen in their lifetime.
Ever.
And right now, we're going to see where the buildup that the actual Chinese have is larger than anything that's ever been done in history. The only thing that's even reminiscent was America in World War II. And they feel this way because they know that Biden will never do anything because he's compromised, his family's compromised. And so what he's got to do now is weaponize our federal government against us, the American people, and against our president, President Trump, to ensure that he doesn't get back into office to be able to go ahead and stop what is going on with China and with Russia and the falling apart of America as a world leader on the stage.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I mean, you've summed it up so eloquently and so intelligently, quite frankly. The man who is currently occupying the White House doesn't even have a clue about what you're talking about. That's how sad it is. And, you know, I want to get your reaction to that, too. I mean, this isn't like partisan politics. It really isn't. It's like, is he fit to be commander in chief? You know, and as a combat veteran, you know, I know you take that seriously. I take it seriously as a patriot, as an American, as a daughter of a father who served in the United States military and the Army. This, to me, you have somebody there who's literally making us less safe at night, and he is not safe himself. He literally fell down at the Air Force graduation. He could barely get back up. This wasn't a one-off. This is happening over and over again. He clearly is in cognitive decline. I had a good friend of both of ours, you know, Admiral and now Congressman Ronnie Jackson, on to discuss it, that this is a serious concern.
Well, he has no mental acuity. He can't make it up Air Force One or across the Air Force Academy stage. He can't ride a bike. He can't lead the nation. He can't do foreign policy. I mean, look, let's go back to when he was the vice president. Secretary of Defense Robert Gates, who is his own Secretary of Defense, said that Joe Biden's the only person he ever knew is 100% wrong in foreign policy. I mean, the guy is not fit for office. He's cost us 13 new Gold Star families as a result of his Afghan botched withdrawal. And Kim, look, you do so much for our veterans and for our suicide. When you talk about the Make 22 Zero Again campaign that you've launched, that you've been in support of, you and the wonderful Miss D. Decker, I mean, when you've done so much because you care and you are a patriot. But the bottom line is that our military is focused on diversity, equity, inclusion, when it should be focused on things like increased lethality, readiness, and preparedness. We're out here looking at where the Air Force has a tweet that goes out where the man or an airman is actually saluting the pride flag. There's only one flag that we should be standing for, and that's the American flag. There's only one thing that you get on your knees for, and that's God. And so we need to start rebalancing what it is to be an American, get back to being a constitutionalist, understand that the person in the White House is leading us to our demise, start looking at what our internal issues are, which is our own government and our national debt ceiling, and then look at our external threats, which are our adversaries like China and Russia, and start taking a bold and decisive approach. The man is 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. He can't do that. His puppet masters, they're allowing him to basically drive America down. And I can tell you that if we want to save this republic, the only way we're going to do that is in 2024 by electing President Trump.
I totally agree. I mean, it's mission imperative, mission critical. You can't have somebody in there with like training wheels. I've said it. We can't have a rookie. We have to have somebody there that is ready to go day one to make sure, because there's a lot of stuff that we have to fix and reverse.
Fear, Kim, and you know that our adversaries, they were never felt emboldened. They respected President Trump on the world stage. They understood that he would take even the unpopular decisions that are right on Americans' behalf. Our allies respected him because they knew that when he says that he's going to get in the fight, he gets in the fight. And the other thing was that he took care of America first. He cared about our borders, our businesses, our trade, our energy independence and dominance to some extent. And then he was actually enabling us to get forward to be the superpower that we once were. This is what we need to get back to. And he has one thing that is the most dangerous ever. When he came in 2016, he was a political outsider. And he has learned so much on how the deep state and others have actually gone against him and tried to undermine him and his agenda that has done more in his 4 years than most presidents do in 2 terms. Now, watch when he comes back in 24 without the fear of a re-election looming over his head. He can make the unpopular decisions and the necessary course corrections to save the Republic and get America back where it needs to be. And there's not a single person running for office right now who has that advantage.
No, you're absolutely right. They can all run, God bless, that's their God-given right. But I think we know this ends one way, with Trump as the nominee, and then we got to be laser focused on the general election. I want to, yeah, absolutely. I want to talk to you because I know you've had a lot of big wins on the Armed Services Committee so far. Tell the folks at home your involvement in that and some of the issues that have come up, because I think it's important. God bless the men and women that have served this country, including yourself.
Well, the one thing that we're looking at right now, which we've already looked at, is the complete abolishment of these COVID vaccination mandates. But also what I'm pushing for with Congressman Jim Banks and also with the help of Congressman Matt Gaetz, we're going to look at also implementing all 8,600 of those individuals who are unlawfully, unconstitutionally purged back into the military if they want, with their full benefits, back pay, and able to serve the country, not the actual agendas of a president. We also have to look at the fact that we need to get back and ban DEI and these drag shows and drag evenings that are actually trying to indoctrinate and poison our children on military installations. And I actually took to account the fact that under the Afghan botched withdrawal, which Secretary Lloyd Austin and Secretary Blinken and President Biden are responsible for, someone needs to be held accountable. I read exactly what dereliction of duty was to Secretary Lloyd Austin. He had agreed to it. I asked if you can be willfully removed from office as a result of these violations. He agreed to it. I read him his own bio of failures and continued efforts that has undermined our actual military strength. And then I showed him my drafted articles of impeachment because I feel that he has a willful dereliction of duty. He needs to be removed from office. We need to start taking care and holding people accountable, stop the two-tiered justice system, put our military first once again, put the American people back in first once again, and start actually doing our jobs to take care of the spouses, the families. And here's the best part. We need to start understanding the quality of life of our soldiers, our airmen, our Marines, our seamen. We have to start realizing that MilCon needs to be done to where there's enough housing, that we have childcare available for the spouses, that we have the necessary counseling capabilities when people come back and they have needs, or they actually are going through marriage difficulties because of deployments and continued longevity of being gone. We have to start thinking about how do we increase the quality of life and the pay of our military so they understand that America appreciates them and prioritizes them. When our illegal aliens coming across our borders are being treated, and the men and women who are serving in uniform, who have pledged an oath to fight and die for our country, is being treated lesser, we have to start realigning our politics and our policies, and that's exactly what we're doing in the Armed Services Committee.
Absolutely. Well, a fine selection. I'm so glad that you're on there, and I know the men and women that have served this country faithfully appreciate all your endeavors and your focused support for them. I'm really happy to hear you guys are going to be able to get them, fully reinstated, everything with their pay, because that was heartbreaking and so hard for so many of these families. And you know what? They were right. They were right to fight against it.
8,600 people, not to mention we have a 25,000 personnel deficit in our recruitment right now. If you combine those, we are 3 military Army divisions empty that we once had that are no longer as a result of this administration. The morale is gone, our priorities are gone, but we're going to get that back. And when President Trump comes in 24, the same thing he did in 16, he beefed up our military, he strengthened us, and he got us back where we need to be. I'm here to support that, and I'm going to continue to keep the fight. And thank you, Kim, for everything that you've been doing, for all your support, for all the support that you've given me personally, for the armed forces, for the veterans, you really are a patriot, and we love you.
Well, it matters to me. It really does. I want to talk about another Braveheart moment of yours. This is the Cory Mills Show. I know that you've been critical, of the debt ceiling bill. What would you have done? I want to, give credence to your voice here on this. What would you have done differently, and what sort of spending cuts would you like to see?
Well, the bottom line is that we passed a bill that was limit, save, grow. This was a tremendous bill when you think about the fact that it was a one-year, $1.47 trillion increase, which would allow us to have 2 bites at the apple when it comes to being able to push conservative legislation and making sure it can't be vetoed and stopped in the Senate. But it also had a $1.2 trillion clawback to include the $500 billion that Joe Biden tried to sign an executive order to go around legislation on that would have been coming back to the American people. The unused COVID funds that would have come back to the American people. 100% of the actual IRA Green New Deal tax credits and the IRS money would have come back to the American people. And we would have actually have done this where we actually put in 87 permit reforms and the RAINS Act that would have helped HR 1, which is our domestic energy bill. It would have helped small, medium businesses who are actually being stifled, trampled, and run over by unelected bureaucrats who think they're lawmakers. And it would have allowed us to actually get an economic growth platform in place that would have been better than anything we've ever seen. It also had work requirements in that said if you're an able-bodied man and woman, you need to work 20 hours a week in order to qualify for welfare. Because here's the reality. Our social programs are to actually give you a hand up to pull you out of poverty, not to keep you in poverty and to weaponize it in a way to try and gain election support. And so there was a lot of things that was built into this that would have been a great success for the American people. When you look at the fact that others try to say this was a negotiation point, it was not a good negotiation point. The bill that came out are two totally separate things. You're talking about a bill that got approved that I voted against, that had no debt ceiling. It had a date, January 1st, 2025 on it. It had no real permit reforms. Out of the 87 we had in the actual Limit, Save, Grow, there's only 4 that we ended up getting out of the actual debt in itself. You had a policy in there that was supposed to actually prevent Joe Biden spending. Well, guess what? With no mandatory spending cap and no ceiling, Biden can utilize the OMB director who works for the president to do a waiver on 2 different occasions that allows him to go around any ceiling cap or any actual debt spending. Then when you talk about welfare reform, all the things that we put in place as a policy, they're not even a statute. They sunset in 2030. The actual executive order that Joe Biden sent for tuition bailout that's costing America $4.3 billion a month, over $180 billion so far, that is not going to basically be stripped away. And let's look at the actual IRS agents. The $80 billion that we were going to strip away, we only negotiated to $1.35 billion to be returned. And they're saying that $10 billion a year can be reallocated. That's great. But guess what? That leaves $60 billion for the IRS to weaponize those 87,000 IRS agents that we know go after our lower and middle class at 3.5 to 5 times more than they do the actual upper class. And so what we're actually enabling is Joe Biden's full presidency and an absolute cessation of our ability to push bills across the floor in a Democrat-controlled Senate and a Democrat-controlled White House. In my opinion, the debt ceiling was a failure. It's going to see an increase of $4 to $6 trillion. It doesn't actually take into account fiscal responsibility. If anything, it's what we call the Fiscal Irresponsibility Act. And we have to acknowledge the fact that this doesn't get us back to economic growth, which is what we need. Look, as a former business owner, I can tell you it's a simple equation. Your account receivables have to exceed your account payables in order for you to actually be a profitable and a streamlined business. What's happening here is that when you get to a certain size in business, you can't cut your way to profitability. The same way that at $31.5 trillion as America, we can't cut our way to prosperity. We have to build our gross domestic production to balance out the ratio to exceed, so that not only can we pay our interest, but we can also pay our mandatory spending and our principal bill to actually get our spending under control, which is our greatest domestic threat, which is our debt. So many empires have failed as a result of this. The Roman Empire failed when they could no longer service their debts. And so what we need is people to understand business. And guess who understands business better than anyone? The man who is the art of negotiation, President Trump. What did we saw? Tax reforms. We saw trade imbalances that were recorrected. We saw a replacement of NAFTA with USMCA. We saw where we had $1.80 gas in the state of Florida, not $5 gas in the state of Florida. We saw a full strategic petroleum reserve. We saw the idea of us exporting and not importing as much. This is what we were trying to strive in this debt bill. And guess what? It fell flat for those who negotiated it.
Yeah, there's a lot of people upset about it, but it's okay to be upset. It's okay to be upset and voice your opinion and try to fight for what's right. That's what you should do every day when you get up to go to your job. So I applaud those that use their voice, that is for sure. I also want to talk about something that kind of sweet. I saw a lot of pictures of you, Cory, looking good. You were hanging out with President Trump, my future father-in-law, at the Live Golf tournament. A lot of people are going to be jealous about that.
It was huge. It was huge.
Huge. And he's up, Mike Cory, you've been very good to Trump.
What an honor. I mean, honestly, I was walking, I was invited. I was pleased to spend the day with the president. We talked a lot about 24. We talked a lot about different policies and what was happening. You could literally feel how concerned he was for the republic, for the country, for the people. He talked a lot about, if I was in office, I would have done this, and the American people would have had that, and our adversaries wouldn't have done this. And he was spot on the entire time. I got to ride around in the golf cart with the president for a while until we got to actually kick off the golf match, which Liv, by the way, congratulations on the great merge that they're getting with the PGA Tour and European golf. But the president was fantastic. We talked a lot about, what is going on and what is the real true state of the union, not what we see on television, but what we feel every single day in our pockets, what we feel every single day in our educational systems, what we see in our military, what we see around the world. And, the president is the only one who actually has an agenda. Agenda 47 is not just cheap political talking points where we use the term woke all the time. This is actual points that get us to where we need to be. And I'll tell you, it was an honor to be able to spend the day with him. And I'll be honest, I shared my concerns with him the minute that I got that debt ceiling. And I told him, sir, I can't vote for this bill, Mr. President. This bill does not achieve what we want. And what you're going to inherit in 2025 is going to be a nightmare. And he said, Cory, we really appreciate it. And I agree with you. And so, just having that relationship and a president who actually understands the American people, that's really what we need. And you know this, Kim, but God, what a great time it was. Got to meet Brooks Koepke, got to meet Phil Mickelson. And the president, by the way, I have to say something on this. This was actually occurred. We were walking down while a lot of the professionals were out there teeing up and just doing on the driving range trying to do it. And Reed actually handed him an iron. And the president kind of looked around for a minute and he said, okay. He gets up there cold. This isn't his golf club. This is fitted to someone else.
Right.
He takes a shot, and I don't know why it wasn't more publicized. And he parked it about 1.5 feet from the hole right on the green.
He's
unbelievable.
So I know. It's unbelievable. Like, he is unbelievable. And I said it the other day, and I got wrote there, Kimberly Guilfoyle gets roasted. I'm like, I don't think I'm roasted, losers. I said that Trump is incredible. I've seen him play 36 holes of golf. He has unbelievable stamina. So they internet melted over it that I said that.
In about 2.5 hours. It takes most people 3.5, 4 hours to play a round of golf.
Oh, trust me, the pressure I was under. So, people are like, hey, my dream is to golf with Trump. And I was doing fundraising. I was national chair. And I'm sitting there saying, oh, my God, I cannot put somebody that can't golf fast and they have to have like a 10 or under handicap to play with Trump.
That's right.
It's no joke. People are like, I'll pay $1 million to golf with him. I'm like, yeah, $1 million's not going to even cut it because your handicap's like a 75 and you'll take about 17 hours and he'll kill me. So we have to vet it. I all of a sudden had to deal with golf.
He's incredible. I was so shocked. I've seen him play. I remember watching when he hit a hole-in-one. It's his first hole-in-one on par 3. And I was like, man, this is incredible, right? And then to see him literally cold, he's not there for that. He's sitting there talking to the professionals. Him and I are having discussions on policy. Yeah. This is at the same time that the nonsense in the Texas House was going on for AG Ken Paxton. And, he's got so much on his shoulders. He's got the AGs weaponized against him. He's got the DAs coming after him. He's got this nonsense with this guy, Jack, who's, trying to go after him as a special prosecutor for documents. Where was he on Joe Biden with his, special documents with a BP behind his green Corvette and an actual garage? But
that's what we talk about, Corvette summer, baby.
They hand him an iron, and he parks it 1.5 feet from the hole.
You can't even make it up. But of course, the press isn't going to show the videos of that or put it forward because it makes, President Trump look how he is. Stamina, strong.
And there was cameras everywhere. If he wouldn't have hit that shot, you'd have seen it everywhere. Because he literally did what he did well, which is he plays under pressure. They're not going to go ahead and push that out there.
He's just, he's a savage. He's beast mode all the way. And guess what? That's what we want. We want someone that has a stamina, that kicks ass, that is totally capable and doesn't fold under pressure. You love that, right? Because that's how you are. And I want that for the country. Like, come on.
We like winners. We like fighters. We want to be able to push the America First agenda. We want to make America great again. We want to make it safe again. We want to make it strong again. That's what we were doing under the Trump administration. No,
absolutely. And I'll give you the final thought on this. What is your message? Now that you've been in the swamp, but you're looking fabulous, so the swamp's is not getting to you. What's your message to your fellow Republicans truly about, what's at stake here in 2024 and how the GOP should put themselves, in the best positioning to go forward and grow the majority, quite frankly, in the House, because we need to, and take back the Senate and the White House?
Look, for my members of the colleagues here in Congress, my biggest thing is that when I ran, I ran because I believe in public service, and no one understands public service like those of us who are wearing the uniform. But there's too many people here who's gotten into the ideas of personal enrichment. You know, I donate 100% of my salary to my district every quarter to a woman and child veteran charity. I don't actually ask for anyone for money, and I put $2.5 million of my own cash into this to make sure that people who didn't have disposable income, because I believe in the public service. My wife, myself, and everyone in my staff, we don't buy, sell, and trade stocks, because I don't believe that you should be allowed to do such. This is about serving the people. We need to stop being politicians who talk and start being statesmen and representatives who actually believe in we the people. We need to have our guardrails and understand that those are the Constitution, the 7 Articles and 27 Amendments, which actually come together to form us to become a more perfect union. We must strive for that. But we have to unite as Republicans and as conservatives and constitutionalists. The infighting is just doing the devil's bidding for them. And we're going to weaken ourselves as we go into this election, knowing that 2024, everyone says it's the most important election every single time. But with what we've just seen, it really and truly is. This could be our last bat. This could be the last time that we get a chance to take a swing to really do this and make sure that we set the Republic up for success. So we have to start understanding that, run for office, enjoy, the ideas of serving and make it about serving the people, but unite as conservatives and start thinking about things not as Republican and Democrat, not as socialist and conservative, but about America versus anti-America. That's what this is about. We're all Americans who have a social contract to our Constitution. We need to do a better job to represent the people, and we just passed Memorial Day. So I would ask everyone, remember this question. What did you do today, or what are you actually working on that was worthy of the sacrifices of so many who's allowed us to be free? If you can't actually say that you're doing anything and you're not living your life in a manner which is worthy of their sacrifice, you need to really check your principles and your moral courage and get back on stage and start actually fighting for what really cares and what we matter about.
Absolutely. God bless. Amen to that. It's totally true. What a pleasure it's been, Congressman. Again, congratulations on the success of your time already. It's been incredible in Congress, and we look forward to having you back very soon.
Thank you so much, Kim. We all love you, and we appreciate everything you're doing.
All right. Take care. And all the best to your staff, too, and to your fabulous wife, who I adore. She's fabulous.
Thank you. You as well.
Okay, take care. All right, and my closing remarks just ahead, but I also want to thank another amazing sponsor, Patriot Mobile. With Patriot Mobile, you put America first with every call, all while getting the same nationwide coverage as major carriers. Not only does Patriot Mobile provide you dependable wireless service at an affordable price, they also share your values, and that should matter. And they actually support you. Patriot Mobile puts their dollars into action as well, donating a portion of every dollar to support groups that fight for the First Amendment, the sanctity of life, and protecting our brave police and first responders. Support companies who support you. Patriot Mobile, mobilizing freedom and supporting you. And guess what? For free activation, you can go to patriotmobile.com/Kimberly, okay? patriotmobile.com/Kimberly. Free activation. All right. And in closing tonight, there is one man committed to standing up for the forgotten men and women across this great nation. There is one man who is such a threat to the system that every corrupt bureaucrat and politician inside the swamp is hell-bent on trying to take him down. Donald Trump has been defamed. He has been smeared and investigated nonstop since the day he came down that golden escalator in 2015. All because he wants to root out the rotten establishment inside Washington that's been selling out American voters time and time again. This is the time to stand with President Trump and be as committed to America first as ever. Don't surrender to the intimidation, because that's exactly what the swamp wants. And no matter what dirty tricks they try to pull next, Donald Trump will never stop fighting for you. And there will be many more developments right here on Rumble, on this show, where we reject the false narrative and always seek the truth. So please be sure to maybe hit a little like button right now. Subscribe to my channel at Kimberly Guilfoyle and Don Jr.'s as well. Turn on notifications, download the Rumble app, and tell all of your friends so they know exactly where to find us. And also be sure, please, kindly to follow me across all platforms, Twitter, Truth Social, Facebook, and Instagram. And don't miss Don Jr.'s big show tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern with DC Drano. He's the best. Hop on over to Locals for a live Q&A with me. I hope you have a wonderful evening. I'll see you all here